Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Xtreme Memories, brought to you by the Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel. You can check us out for more episodes of Xtreme Memories on the 15th and 30th of the month. And we are back once again with another exclusive Xtreme Memories. Don't forget to like, comment, share, hit the old bell, the notification button, right? And share this video with any and everybody who's interested in memories that are extreme. Now, I'm going to be talking today about maybe some of you fans are saying, wait a minute, who in the world is that guy right there? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this guy was very instrumental, very crucial, very important for the success and the production and just basically keeping XPW afloat. We're going to get more into that later. Kind of think about, if you would, the name Kevin Dunn with Vince McMahon, or names like that you know were very crucial to WWE, for example, but we don't see him on television. Maybe like in the background, we'll see him on camera doing a little stuff, which we've seen Mike do before. Oh, look at this. But this is
breaking all around.
You know what? It's getting extreme already. I want to welcome to the show the one and only Mike Hartsfield. Mike, welcome to Xtreme Memories with Kris Kloss.
Thank you so much, my friend. It is so good to see you. I
right
wish
back
it's more often and more in depth, but hey, if we've got to look at each other's phones, then that's fine too.
Yeah, that's fine too. We hit it off right when you started in XPW. Immediately. Yeah, immediately. And then we also had the pleasure of working with each other as co-workers later on at Big Vision Entertainment, kind of circa the same time WSX was being produced for MTV. So we'll get into all that. Not only that, but XPW's Cold Day in Hell. We'll get into that as well. But Mike, let's get started now, because we want to kind of give the fans a little bit. We got to do a little bit something different here, and we got to put more work into this interview, because people don't know you. We're just seeing you. Maybe they may have heard your name, they've seen your credits on some of the videos, things like that. You met a few at the live shows, but again, you weren't featured on the television product. You were very instrumental, but behind the camera. So we would definitely want to paint the picture for those XPW fans, wrestling fans, exactly who you are and why you were very important, which you were, to the product of Xtreme Pro Wrestling. So, but before we do that, tell us, Mike, a little bit about yourself. How did you, it's in terms of professional wrestling, how did you get involved with pro wrestling, or how did you start to understand it, like it, let's say early on before you got into XPW, or when did it start for you in your life?
My being a fan started very, very young, wrestling with my brothers in the house and just always watching, anything we could get our eyes on. Yeah. All the mattresses, all the mattresses getting dragged downstairs, and
right,
cardboard belts, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think it was I was living in Woodland Hills, and I was watching the local channel, and it would have WCW and WWF, and then later on I thought, XPW, what the hell is this? Or it was ECW and WWF, I believe. And I just remember seeing XPW. I'm like, they're in North Hollywood. Like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, Van Owen Street. Like, I started looking at that. Like, that's down the street from me. Like, there's local wrestling that's of substance. And I believe it was right after the high school auditorium shows that they had done.
Birmingham High School. Right?
Birmingham High, yeah. And I was watching the videos of those shows, and I saw an ad for they're going to the Olympic Auditorium. And I was like, I hadn't been in the Olympic in 15, 20 years or however long it had been. And I was like, I've got to go see this. I've got to go support this local thing, with these guys. Like, you know, these are dudes, you know, like these are some local guys I really got to support. And I remember they had the box office, which was the office for Xtreme.
Right.
And I went in and like, I went in to buy tickets and I was just standing there and like guys from the wrestling show are like just hanging out and walking in and out of doors and stuff. And I was like, what's going on here? And I had no idea of the Xtreme Associates, connection or anything. And I got the tickets and I went to the show, and it was funny because I saw the show and I was like, this is amazing. There's got to be more of this constantly. I need to be taking this in on a daily basis. I was so excited about it. And I just remember going like, who do I talk to get involved?
Right.
Like, you know, I've been involved in some film production and concert production promotion.
Right.
And I was like, I've got to have something I can lend to this. Like, this is so great. I just fell in love with it. And I just remember that from the entryway, there were these big white or big black, like tarps, like it just was like a big black piece of fabric. And if you look at those shows, the shows with the big X with the XPW across, the wooden thing, there's always these black, like drapery things hanging in disarray. It's trying to cover something up and it's just hanging crooked. And I just remember going, I can make this look better.
Yeah, right.
I know I can. Like, just give me the ball and like I'll figure this out. And so back in the days of AOL email, I found an AOL address that was probably XPWX at AOL or something. And I just wrote, hey, are you hiring? Do you need people? I've got some production background. Like, I'd love to come work on the show, the live events.
Right.
And it took a while and I didn't hear from anyone. And then I saw the name pop up on AOL Instant Messenger. And I was like, oh my gosh, like somebody that can speak to somebody for me, or this might be the person I need to talk to, is now on Instant Messenger. Like, so I just started typing like, hey, I sent an email if you need anybody. And come to find out, it was the Messiah who I was messaging with. And it was really short answers. And it was just really kind of like, yeah, oh, really? Okay. And he said, oh, send an email tomorrow or something. And so I followed up the email and said, hey, I live in Woodland Hills. I'm really close. I'd love to, do something. And then I got an email from Kevin and he said, oh, like, you saw the show, you got some ideas, whatever, and I'm sure everyone in wrestling production gets, oh, hey, I can help you. I can do this and do that. And there's a lot of blown smoke. And so I went to the office, and the office had moved to the Van Owen address.
Right.
The address before was, I can't even remember what street.
I thought it was 16140 Leadwell.
That was it. Yeah. Leadwell.
Was it? Okay. I know it was 116 or 16. Okay. 161 for it.
Yeah.
It was off Sherman Way and Woodley. So whatever the number is right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went in and met with Kevin, and it was kind of funny. I'm like, oh, I watch this guy on TV every week. It was kind of that surreal surrounding. Is like, oh, like all of these people are just regular dudes doing their job that are on a local TV channel, but are also on VHS and DVD and like,
and local at the time. Well, local for us, a local syndicate, but by the time you came in, we had already got to America One. So we were North America at that point. But when you watched it in LA, it felt local because America One just kind of had those networks that they were affiliated with that appeared local wherever you were on. No different than when you watch Velocity, WWE, Jacked, or ECW anywhere else in the country.
Right. And so Kevin said, well, you could work part-time for XPW, or you could work full-time doing half work for Xtreme and then work for XPW also. And I was like, okay, like I didn't have a job at the time. I was like, okay, and so I got hired to do some accounting work for the Extreme Associates side, bill collecting and just regular kind of
Right.
menial accounting stuff. And which was funny because, yeah, you can work half your time for XPW and you can work half of it for Extreme Associates. But during the day from 9 till 6 was all Extreme Associates. There was no wrestling during the day. And then if you wanted to stay late, you could stay late and work on
very late. Very late. Yeah.
So, which was the perfect thing that worked for me because I worked a full day and then I'd be excited to work longer. Like it was perfect and terrible at the same time because I'd spend the night there. You know, I would spend the night just being like, I could drive an hour, or 30 minutes to get home, then 30 minutes or 45 minutes in the morning with traffic, or I can just sleep here, like sleep on my desk or whatever. But it was great because I was entrenched in it. Like I just learned as much as I could, tried to tweak and fine tune things if I thought that something could work better. But that was, and then I think my first show was the second Olympic show that I worked.
Okay. All right. Do you remember what show that was called?
I think the one that I went to might have been Inner Sandman.
Oh,
Exit
Sandman was Philly. So
yeah, it was his debut. So I think I'm pretty sure that was the show I worked because I didn't know he was coming.
Ah, okay.
Like I remember being like, oh, great. Like, you know, you really don't know anybody. Thanks.
Dude, I remember like one of the reasons we kind of clicked, I remember you'd sit in your office and you were brainstorming ideas. Like you said, you noticed the product, you noticed what could be improved watching on television and whatnot. And you brought that into the office under your new position now as an employee, right? So, and also, like you said, you are an accomplished musician, Mr. Hartsfield. You made. Now, he laughs right here, but I know people not through wrestling. A guy I know who works at KLOS, Dave Kaplan. He's the engineer Dave on Breakfast with the Beatles on Sundays. So this guy and people like him, like I remember bringing you up. He's like, oh, dude, that guy knows his stuff. Like you were a name in the punk scene in LA, and so you obviously. Do you know Numskull Entertainment? Numskull.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know Eddie, the guy who does that?
Oh yeah.
So I'm good friends with him through Dave and all that. So it's a small world. I'm surprised. This is the first time, fans, that we brought that up, that we know this same person, mutual.
That's right.
Mutual friend. But all these guys know you, and that whole scene knows you. So Numskull and all of them. Shout out to Eddie and Numskull Productions Entertainment. They do shows all up and down California.
Big
and
shows.
And I'm sure you've worked with them too indirectly at least. So doing those shows gave you a lot of experience coming in the door of Xtreme and XPW, and you could tell meeting you and listening to you in your ideas back then, like, okay, you knew what you were talking about, right? So I just remember going into your office and it's funny because I when we first did shows at the LA Sports Arena, I was walking around. Hey, these need to be turned on. This was where it used to say Clippers and the matrix board. And I went up to the booth and they couldn't get it working. I'm like, oh man, because we could have put our website and everything.
Oh yeah.
And XPW TV Saturday nights at 11 on KGLA, like blinking at the LA Sports Arena. So all this stuff, and then wait a minute, these lights need to be shined where the people are sitting, those house lights. So I remember like brainstorming these, and some people would listen to me. And I remember Rob and Kevin were like, Kris, we need you to focus on the announcing. You don't have time for this. I'm like, I know, but this needs to be done right here. And they just wanted me to like make sure I was like, had my A game for what I was doing. So it's almost like they didn't want to hear it from me. Right. So, and I was a little frustrating, but I remember one show at the Olympic, it might've been before you, where the Olympic auditorium had the actual like boxing ring and wrestling ring lighting, like you would see WWE bring into an arena for a TV taping. Whereas like a normal arena would just have the scoreboard would come down and there'd be a light under the scoreboard. It looked like a house show. But the Olympic had those, you're right, had those like concert lighting permanently installed in the Olympic. Right. So I remember like, all right, Rob and Kevin, they're just not hearing me right now. They just want me to focus on doing the internet show and getting ready for the event. And so I went to the Olympic, the guy running all the production stuff. I'm like, hey, can we bring those lights down real quick? I want to turn the house lights out that shine on the upper deck, which was empty. And I want to take these lights down and take 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of them and just shine them right where the fans are sitting opposite hard cam and keep all this black. And we did that. And I tell you, dude, like I don't want to toot my horn or anything or give myself the old Barry Horowitz. But I will say that like I could tell which shows I was able to talk to those guys and do that with. And then the next show, it was like I tried to do it again. They're like, no, we're good. And then you could see all the empty seats. You could see all the where the fans were sitting. It wasn't even lit up, right? And it was like, dude, you guys, man. So when you came in, and we had now a guy that's what your department was, I was like, oh, dude, awesome. And I was like, would come into your office and we just BS and brainstorm. Yeah. And so that was I always loved that. And they needed that guy like you, because that's really when, if you look at the product, that's when the production did take a notch up. It took a notch up as far as how it looked on television, how it was produced, and a part of that was you for sure. And well, you should know that more than I should, but you're just being humble right now, man. But no, and I one thing I remember is this is right before we went to Philadelphia, and you were trying to figure out on your computer whatever the program's called. I'm very computer illiterate, but maybe you remember. But it was a program where you were like making the banners and you were trying to fit the XPW logo on the ring apron. Oh, and and if you remember the XPW logo right here, no, Lizzie, I'm not pointing at the but if you look at that red X behind the classic red X behind the XPW logo, you were trying to fit it in the ring apron. And I remember coming out, I'm like, why don't we just take the red X out and just put XPW giant letters on the ring apron? And we did it. And you were like, done. You know, so.
That was one of the best ideas. And like those shows, especially those were for, I think, I'm not sure if those debuted at the Olympic or they might have been at Pico, but
I think it was Pico.
Those made the ring look amazing. Like I was so excited. And the thing is I had to, I took the 4 aprons and took the old logo off and then Xeroxed a huge logo, cut it out with an X-Acto knife, pinned it to it and painted 4 of them with a paintbrush. Using that as a stencil. And it was, when those came out, I was just like, oh my God, that's impressive. Like I was really excited about that.
You know, what's funny was you actually put a lot of like artistic work. Were you an artist at all? I know you're a musician, but were you an artist, painter, or anything like that?
No. I can barely draw stick figures, but I'm halfway good at Photoshop. And if there's like an idea that something started, I can sometimes add to it and kind of put it in a different direction, which is also why those conversations that you and I used to have were so great, because you and I would flush out an idea and then go present it to Kevin or Rob with like an idea that's like 90%. Like both of us are agreeing we've got the capability to do it. It's not going to cost a ton of money. Like we knew what we were up against. So I think when you and I put our heads together, we weren't saying, oh dude, let's take 10 grand and invest it in, a blimp or something. It was like the ideas were organic. Right. They were smart to wrestling. It was beneficial to the fans and the product and how the TV looked, how the DVD is going to look, like the longevity of those efforts and how they would play out.
I mean, I would walk into an arena and that was what I was concerned, thinking, and focused on more than the show. Because I knew that, like, the show is all about post-production. Of course, you want to make the fans happy and all that. And that really is, the wrestlers have way more responsibility than you or myself in that department, of course. But that's just how my mind worked when I would walk into that place. My parents thought I was going to be an electrician, like when I was a kid, because when I was little, they have stories of like all the kids would go and go where the playpen was, or the playground outside. And if it was like someone's house, I would look at the light switches and figure out which one did what, and that goes to that plug. And so, like, when I was a kid, they thought I was just going to be, that was what I was going to do, you know, something similar to that. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, he was a city engineer. So I got a lot of that from him. He actually, I didn't find this out till shortly before or after he passed away, where he actually my grandfather designed some of the roads, the streets in Santa Monica as a city engineer. Wow. Right. He never talked. He never bragged about that. And, you know, so 26 Cloverfield, where it zigzags and it's it's a one-way street, one of those right around there. He designed all that. But so my family always told me, like, I got a lot of that from him. Right. But anyway, but no, that's what I would do. I would go in there, and that's my mindset. So it was great to have you on board, because, again, Kevin and Rob were like, Kloss, stop. We need you to come on. You're the announcer, you know, like, right. So when you and I would brainstorm on the side, and then we think of something cool, whether it came from me or you or both of us, it's like, no, Mike, you present that. That's your idea, you know? and then, yeah.
I just remember, like, we'd sometimes get our ideas heard about, like, maybe 10 or 11 at night. We would like get into Rob's office, and he would be not busy with something. And we'd go, like, I just remember presenting stuff to him. What now? You know, like, what do you guys want? You know, and it'd be like, hey, we've got this idea to do whatever. And then it would be like, does he say no, or does he not say anything? Because if he doesn't say anything, we could be working on something.
Yeah.
No, then it was like, is there a halfway idea, or is it strictly kaputs? So
I remember that story about when I went to the production guys at the Olympic. Of course, when I was in the middle of working for him with the production Olympic guy, and like by the time he brought the lights down to adjust them, of course, Kevin and Rob's like, Kloss, what are you doing? What are you doing? Aren't you getting ready? Like, don't you have to do like like XPW radio, whatever we're doing? And of course I got, you know, had to eat my crow, whatever it was. And then, but I remember when the show started and it was lit up, I remember going to the monitor, like, guys, doesn't it look good? And I remember, again, it was like silence. Or like, man, you know, so I was like, all right, cool. That's I'll take what I can get, you know.
Right.
But
nobody's yelling at me that it was a bad idea, so I'm guessing it was a good idea.
There you go. That's exactly, that's the vibe, right? I remember the one time you made this really cool, it was like a foam board that you painted black. You cut out so they would bounce off of it. Right. They would pop the XPW X, and then the letters with the barbed wire. You did all this work for this, like, looked like a banner, but it was like a post. It was it was
kind of like it was
foam.
Like 3-inch hard foam.
Right.
It was actually insulation, and it was a 4x8 sheet of it.
Dude, it looked incredible. And we were doing it the day of the show. I don't know if you remember this, but we're doing it the day of the show. Literally laid it down on the ring. Oh, looks great. Bam, put it right up on the entranceway. Guys, take a look at that. And as we're looking, oh shit, white glue is like dripping down. And we see this, like, we're like, damn, too bad that has to be white and not red. It would look like blood, you know. And we're like, and we're like, I hope the letters stay up there. The letters stayed up there, but the sign by the time the show's over is like all this white glue and drip down. Like, pretty funny.
And you asked me if I remember that. That's like one of the worst days of my life. You remember that? I'm not sure I remember that. I just remember seeing that glue run down going, it's like 25 feet in the air. We don't have a ladder. We hung it by ropes, like from the balcony. And I just remember going, and I remember through the show, it changed. Like you'd see one drip further and then one drip further. Yeah. But I think, and it was funny too, that sign must have cost like $60 or something. Like it was really affordable. And I think it had been thrown in a storage and like broke in half or something. And I was just like, Jesus.
Yeah, I know, man.
I remember when Big Vision, when we started talking about Cold Day in Hell, and I'm like, oh, where's all the set design stuff? And we went looking for stuff, and it was like banners that were wet and thrown in a corner, and it was just like all this stuff to where we didn't really have much, and the X's were gone. Everything that could have been really cool to bring out, right, and have the fans see like a real part, connecting these years together. A lot of that stuff was gone, or most of it, all of it.
Totally. Just to let you know, and the fans know too, before this interview last night, I went into storage and went through all my stuff. I actually have a ton of old XPW original stuff, the files, the specs, the negatives, all that stuff, and the official, the original artwork. But I was actually looking because I know somewhere I have an original XPW banner from one of the shows, but I couldn't find it. Hopefully I'll find it one day. It's just a chore looking through stuff. But I did find
is it one with a logo and stuff, or was it one of the ones from the event?
Yeah, it's from the event that we had hanging up. Yeah, and it was just a black banner with the XPW logo, which I love. It wasn't like the name of a show or anything. It was just XPW, which was great. Couldn't find it, but I went through a ton of stuff that I brought to the Wrestling Chatter studios here, and I actually found like all this really cool negatives and the DVD artwork. And I found these, which is New Year's Revolution 2002, January 12th, 2002. So I do have some stuff, but like you said, it's a shame that a lot of the stuff just didn't survive through moves, through storage. But, luckily I did keep a few of these things. So fans, I have a ton of these. So you might see them on eBay one of these days, and then you'll know who what my screen name is at that point. But we'll see. We'll see.
We did new aprons for Cold Day in Hell, those big color ones. I wonder where those are.
And we did new banners for that show too. And I talked to Devin Lafebre, who is one of the producers producer on WSX MTV, but I can't remember what he said, but I think he kind of had a similar story of like, I think a lot of that stuff was just neglected, unfortunately. And then there was also stuff that we don't even know about to this day, which was like the weird thing about the ownership. Maybe I'll ask you in a little bit of like how it went from Rob to Big Vision, then to XEG, Houston and Rick, and then back to Rob, and then nobody agrees on really who owns the company at this point.
Big mystery.
Yeah. So luckily we're able to do these shows though here on the Wrestling Chatter and just kind of answer fans' questions and people that are just still interested in this, which is, I've been saying this on all of these, pretty much every show. It's just so cool when you talk to people and how interested they are in this still. So very cool. But let me ask you this, Mike. So what was your role? What was your official title, your job title there?
My official title was the vice president of production for like live events, everything to and from, to driving the U-Haul with the ring and all the stuff in it, to and from, and all the prep leading up to the shows, and like all the scaffolding stuff with Free Fall, which was an incredible experience, really just wild. We can get into that if you want.
Well, you were instrumental in setting that up, and you were the guy basically that image that we see everywhere to this day. Again, Dark Side of the Ring featured that moment. There's a lot of like top 10s online of like the top 10 craziest moments, wildest moments, insane moments in pro wrestling history, and usually that moment is on there, right? So so people yeah, I mean, that match on YouTube has like, I think some close to 1 million views or so, you know, so yeah, which is cool, you know, because we're part of that and all that. But talk a little bit about that, because you were there during that crazy time, and any other crazy times that you could think of, like Supreme getting lit on fire, or and because you came from the music industry, the punk rock scene, which was wild in itself, right? Because
right, and being at the Olympic Auditorium where so many of those shows had happened, it was like, it's just supposed to be here. It's supposed to be wild. And the free fall show was incredible looking back on it for so many reasons, but day to day and leading up to it was really intense, because I just remember we're advertising a 40-foot scaffolding on TV, and this 40-foot scaffolding, and we're flyering, and we're out, and we're 40-foot scaffolding, and all this 40-foot scaffolding. And we would have, whenever we had a production meeting, nobody talked about the assembly of this scaffolding. It just hadn't even come up in a group setting. And I just remember going to Kevin, like, hey, like, is there a plan? Do we have a contractor or somebody who's going to come out and build this thing? Because like 40 feet is not like, hey, we're going to go rent some parts and pieces and make something that doesn't tip over onto people. And it was just kind of hummed and hawed. And I remember going, dude, if you're going to give this to me, give it to me now. Like, if I've got to start making calls and like figuring stuff out, then like, it's a sooner the better. And I remember it was a week and a half before the show. And I drew up a schematic and I showed it to Kevin, and it had the ways the guys were going to get up. It had the plank going across. It had placement, how it was going to be over the ring, and started a chain of events of me lying to each person that had to have a part in this thing, whether it was the fire marshal, the insurance people, the guy building the scaffolding. And it was really like, I had to hide things from certain people and only give paperwork to certain things. And so we got the okay from the Olympic, and they said, hey, as long as the fire marshal signs off on it, we don't have a problem, you know, because they need their fallback.
Right.
And so I got a company that said they were going to come do it. I said, you got to come Saturday morning, and you can't pick it up till Monday morning, because we didn't want to deal with anything else on the weekend. And the Olympic was fine with that. So they agree to the schematics. We agree on the budget. I don't remember what it was. But the guys show up Saturday morning, and we're all there Saturday morning. And I remember that both the scaffolding company and the Olympic requested insurance, a rider for us to show we were covered, and they were covered. And I had made it on my computer with liquid paper and a typewriter, and I changed the date on an old insurance rider. So wow. I fax it to the Olympic. I fax it to the scaffolding guy. Everyone says great. And so at the Olympic at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., whenever we got in there, scaffolding guy shows up. He starts assembling this thing and bringing up the lighting truss, like you did, the boxing one that's over boxing wrestling. Yeah. It's for the ring that's over the over the ring. So these guys are going up 40 feet and they hit that. The fire marshal shows up, signs off on the plans, says, have a great show. After he starts talking about the sports arena and WWF, and like, oh, I'm like, oh yeah, let's chat, let's bro down, let's, you know, oh, he signs off on the thing. And I'm like, great. And I look at the scaffolding guy and I say, see you Monday. And I go up to the Olympic office and I hand it to Jose and I go, hey man, this is from the fire marshal. And he was like, I don't know how you did it. Have a great show. Wow. And I was like, I could not believe it at that point. Like, okay, race to the show. Let's get barricades up. Let's get everything else going on. And I just remember people coming in and going, oh yeah, like this massive, like, because you walk in on the ground level and there's just this huge contraption. Like, it was so big. And like, I remember having to adjust the guardrail and just like really accommodate this thing. And I remember as soon as Jack got there, they were like taking off the safety stuff, because when it started out, it was like a catwalk. It was a straight shot across with hand railings.
Right.
And so one of the hand railings was right over the ring. So they took all that safety gear off. And I just remember guys lowering these bars and big pieces of safety railing down with ropes. Like, like the guys. Oh, and I had sold the Olympic on, we're going to have cameramen up there. Like, there was no discussion of it being used in a match. It was all camera angles, and we're going to have this.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was another part of nobody really knew the truth between the fire marshal, the building, and the scaffold.
Isn't it funny how like those people with the Olympic, the fire marshal, they didn't have any idea. Only those of us that work there, as well as the thousands of fans that came in there, like those guys we were secretive to those guys, yet the thousands there knew from all the hype of the show and everything, television. Like, it was no big secret,
Yeah. So it's one of those things like, okay, if we don't pull it off, I gave it a good shot. Like, I was really thinking of my exit route in case one of these three people says, well, you're going to have people up there? Like besides just the cameraman, you've got wrestlers. This is going to be used in some way, and could it tip over? And I remember during the match seeing it shudder a few times and being like, okay, like, we're just kind of counting the minutes. Like, let's get through this match.
And get through that night.
Yeah. And I just remember between production, it was no matter what happens, clear the building. Like, everybody needs to leave. If you can hear Ron saying, hey, everybody, please, and I just remember it was like a bunch of snapshots coming together of Vic falling, looking at me, making physical eye contact with him, and him hitting the ropes, falling back in the ring, the crowd just bursting, and like looking in the fact that he didn't hit the concrete like as a success. And then like those doors fly open, the ambulance is out there with the red lights, and it was just like Kevin running out to talk to Vic and the paramedics running in, and like just so much. And I see the scaffolding shaking, and I look, and Jack's up there just pounding his chest, and I was just like, oh my God, are we making it through? Did we really get through this? And it just being like, fucking just such a stellar experience,
Oh, I remember a weird kind of like almost like a horrific feeling in my consciousness that night. Like, there was something like, I remember like we're leading up to the match, and right after he fell, and the whole time I'm like, this is historic. I already knew it was just from the product and how we were hyping it, but I just remember like this out of body experience. Like, this is one of those moments that will live in infamy, in history, all the above. And I remember that, just feeling that so thick, and feeling the uncertainty, wildness, unexpected, just free flow, no censorship vibe of how the fans were feeling that night. And that was what XPW was. It was like, you went to the shows, and it really felt like, I don't know what I'm going to see tonight. You really felt that with XPW. And fans tell me that all the time. Like that, I was talking to a fan recently, like a week ago, and big fan, of wrestling his whole life. And he goes, I really miss those shows. I miss that, because when I go to wrestling, I kind of know what I'm going to see. Like, you always felt like, what raw, real, no pun intended, raw, but what I never have that, like, that unexpected feeling anymore when I go to wrestling, and the most I've ever had it was with XPW. And that goes for us too. Just like you're talking right now, those of us involved in it, we were like you said, let's get through this night, because we don't know how this will play out, you know?
Yeah, like, is the Olympic going to find something out between everybody that could chime? Like, could the scaffolding guy say something on Monday, you know? And I remember dealing with the staff at the Olympic in the office, and they didn't really want us there, you know? Like not in a we don't want you here way, but in like a, oh, that date's not available. Oh, that date's not available. And like, I remember we were paying $10,000 to be in the room.
Yeah.
Which I bet they didn't want us. And they said, if they're willing to pay $10,000
exactly
for 24 hours, we'll give them the building for 10
grand. Of course.
You know? And so I'm sure a lot of people got out for much easier than that. And another thing too, is leading up to free fall.
Sorry, Lizzie. She just took a fall right when you said free fall. She just took a fall right there.
The walls are talking to us.
That's right, man.
I remember there was a Latin vocalist guy, like group, that was rehearsing on the floor of the Olympic. Like, they had built an entire stage on the floor, and I walked in there to get a bunch of tickets or something during the week, and I went in and I'm like, what's going on here? And there were 3 semi-trailers in the parking lot, and there was this enormous production you would see on stage at the Forum on the floor of the Olympic. And I was like, what's going on? And he goes, oh, it's a guy named Luis Miguel. You've never heard of him? And I was like, no. Oh, he's been rehearsing there for 5 days. They have to tear down all of his stuff, move it back out to the semis, let us have our show, and then load it all back in for 5 more days of production or rehearsals. And I remember there was a semi of just wardrobes. Like, this guy's a huge deal. And I found out later, you know, obviously if the semis and the size of the stage didn't give it away.
Right.
But I just remember he's like, hey, you guys had your date solid, and they agreed to this schedule of setting everything up. Because when we walked in, there was no sign of, you know, there was nothing left behind. So
yeah. No, that I vaguely remember that now. That whole, like, somebody else was there, but again, that right there just shows you, validates what you said. Like, for 10 grand, they'll do all that.
Yeah,
you know? They'll do all that. You know, that event. You know, before we got on, we were just catching up, and we were talking about music. I was, you and I are both Scorpions fans, so one of the reasons I you know, of anybody to wear this shirt on, it was you. And we were talking. This will tie into the show, but we were talking about former Scorpions guitarist and UFO, arguably the greatest ever, Michael Shanker. Like, oh, why isn't this guy talked about with Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix? But in music circles, he is definitely right up there with those guys. But in the mainstream, maybe in America he's not, but Europe he's more known, in other countries, continents. But and then you brought up, you know what, man, it's not till like he passes away that people will be like, oh, he's so awesome. Right. This free fall was one of those events, because I've talked to people before. They're like, how in the world were the seats empty up top? How was that place not sold out? Now that this show has happened and the history it's gotten, like today, when people know what they know now, that show would have easily sold out. It's weird to see in a historic event like that not sold out. Whereas now people would be like, knowing that was going to happen and the history this had, that would have sold out very quickly. So it kind of weird how, like, you can look at an old show like that, but until the nostalgia of it circles around, it's like, oh yeah, I would have totally been at that show. Well, then why weren't you? You know? But no, don't get me wrong. There were a lot of fans there. The Olympic is ginormous. The lower bowl was full, but just the top wasn't. And we were still struggling. And as short as XPW was around, but as much as the notoriety it's gotten, we were still in our infancy. We were still building that brand, you know, throughout those 4 years, even up to the end. You know, we still that it takes a long time to really build a brand, you know. And of course, we had advantages with production, being with Xtreme offices, all the equipment, and being with money on television. But you still had to build that brand. So people will look back at those shows and kind of wonder, like, seems like that should have been sold out, or this, that, the other. Well, now that it's made the rounds of history, yeah, you could say that. And so, like a famous musician that, oh, we don't know about him until he dies and whatever, kind of like the same way with shows like Free Fall or other shows, whether it's wrestling or anything like that. But that event, from where you or your job position, where I was, where everybody was, it was just one of those historic nights that was like, this is a big deal. And then after he fell, we were like, oh my gosh, because I've told this to Kevin on this show and others, like, and others have shared with me, like, we were just concerned that he wasn't dead.
Right.
Well, and I talked to Vic himself, you know, and I told him, like, dude, I was scared for your life, dude. And I'm so glad you're here, because, dude, if anyone knows Vic Grimes, like, he's just the greatest. He's like the nicest dude in the world.
Right.
We say that about a lot of guys, and there were a lot of nice guys, but man, I mean, he was just a class act all the way. So
totally.
I think he handled himself fine with everything that happened with that match, things between him and New Jack. If you know the guy personally, you can attest that I feel, totally did everything he could to on his end to make amends and do whatever needed to happen, you know, with that relationship and just everything in his career, you know. But where were you? Like, okay, so you were saying that you were close by and you saw his eyes coming down. So when I was gonna say, when he landed, I know Kevin ran right up to him and all that. What were you feeling? What was going through your mind? Where were you, and how did you like find out he was okay?
I was probably 6 feet away from the ring post when he hit that corner.
Okay.
Like, if you can see, there's a few times the camera swings around as they're getting in position, and I'm like trying to creep by and not be seen and stay kind of in the outer area to be close whenever things happened. And I just remember Jack tossing him, and we had duct tape all those tables together. Like, remember, we had that huge 12 tables, like this ridiculous amount of tables, like you couldn't miss it, and you almost missed it. But I just saw when he landed, I believe, on his butt and the back of his legs on the rope. And if it had been his butt, he would have slid out onto the concrete. Like, it was just enough to spring him back into the ring, and he just kind of crumbles in the corner. But I just remember making eye contact with him, going, he's really coming towards that corner fast. And he chipped those sides of the tables, and just hit those ropes and bounced back in. I mean, you know, who knows if it had been over 2 feet. I know. I think the rope would have hit him on his butt or his back, and he would have been more than halfway out of the ring. I think he would have continued onto the concrete.
Oh yeah. And think of the possibilities too of him hitting the ring post.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dude, or the guard railing or the fans.
Right.
Or the fans, dude. Yeah, like, he could have gone into the freaking fans, man. That's how crazy the show was. And like, we're talking about one show, and this maybe was the most, well, I guess it was the most extreme moment in the company history, if it makes the top 10 in pro wrestling history, right? So, but saying that, there are some close seconds and thirds and all this stuff in XPW to that moment. So we're talking about this one show, but that was almost every show that when we had crazy stuff set up, that we too were like, let's just get through this night. Let's hope. So lucky and fortunate for everybody in that company on so many different times and so many different levels too. No pun intended.
Yeah. And I think that was what attracted it to me, because it was gritty. It was down and dirty. It was, it wasn't hidden behind a lot of special effects and things. It was like really right in your face. And so then getting into it and being involved on the production side was just as exciting as watching it, because now you're trying to turn the screws to make this thing look even better. And hopefully, if the product looks better, it looks better on TV. Maybe it opens doors. Maybe it's, better for VHS sales or DVD sales. And it was just always like pouring all you could into every show. But like you said, with the company being in its infancy, is like there wasn't a venue we could dial into, like where we could, because it was the high school before me. It was, I was there for the Olympic stuff and then on to Pico Rivera, but I was gone before Philly. I didn't even go to the first Philly show. Right.
You designed the aprons. And I want to say, actually, now that I think about it, I think the aprons you designed, the ring aprons, I think the first time that was used, I want to say it was Philly, because I just remember sitting in your office like, this is what's going to look like in Philly. But that was right before you left, though. Like you were doing stuff for the company leading up to Philly, but you just weren't there when it all happened.
When I left, Philly hadn't been discussed.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because I remember, because I would have stuck around.
Okay.
Because I just remember being one of the reasons I quit is because, like, I loved what we were doing, but it's not always the easiest work situation to be where you're working 18-hour days and like running ragged and trying to do all these different things. And I just remember like just going like, God, I think it's time, like, and which is weird because we got paid next to nothing to work all the time, but it's doing something you love. So it's like, that's the give and take of it all.
Yeah.
But I remember leaving, and I think there might've been, I think there was one. Oh, it was was that the paintball show? Was that before?
No,
or was that after?
The paintball show was the last ever show.
Okay.
And the X Park in Sylmar, Sun Valley, wherever that was.
Right.
But that was all after Philly, after Pittsburgh. I can't remember. Okay, so I'll get corrected, or I'll be notified by. Thank you, by the way, for the fans that I don't mind if I'm corrected, because there's a lot of stuff to remember. I pride myself on remembering most everything about XPW, but I'm not going to remember everything, But I think it's either X Park or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh was the last ever show, and I think it was X Park was the last show. So no, that was well after, like right after Philadelphia. I remember the fans were like happy and pissed. I remember like I came to the ring. First off, like fans, I was on the TV show Blind Date at the time, and I did Blind Date strictly to try to promote XPW. I didn't care about being on the show, but the girl I met, she was really nice, so we hit it off. But anyway,
cool.
But nonetheless, the fans were like, "What happened? What did you score? Did you score?" And I remember, by the way, on Blind Date, they're like, "What do you do?" And then I'm an announcer for Xtreme Pro Wrestling, XPW, and they edit it like I'm an announcer for Pro Wrestling. Like they took Xtreme and then XPW out. Like, I'm an announcer for Pro Wrestling. Damn. All right, whatever. I tried. But I remember when I came to the ring during that show, like the fans were like, "Yeah, XPW is LA. You assholes, don't ever go back east again. Like, this is our company." So I remember like it felt pretty cool, like
right.
Yeah, like because after we did all those shows in Philly, there were some fans that like liked it because we were expanding, but there were a lot of fans that were like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, where are the fans? Like, we and I agree with a lot of that, that at least call it our home base if we are going to go somewhere else, right? And that was what we did, and the plan was to continue that, of course,
Well, and didn't a lot of those East Coast shows happen in a row without West Coast shows.
Right. Yeah.
Like there wasn't an equal trade of.
Not at
So
all.
people are going to feel like this thing used to be mine and now it's gone, you know.
Right.
And I think you've got to address that at some point.
Totally.
And really, you know, wrestling is the art of give and take, but you've got to be able to keep people at home interested on a good level, but still let them see their guys win and lose, you know, with however the storyline takes them. But they still got to have some sense of ownership of it.
Another thing that fans have told me too was like, one thing I liked about XPW is like, when you go to whether it was WWE or WCW was gone then, we were still going after they were gone. ECW, of course, was gone. But one thing that like fans would always say to me was like, the one thing that I can count on is when you watch XPW on TV, it's like you were saying, there's not like a special effects or anything going on. Like, I know I'm going to see that same, it's like a band. If you like this band sounds just like they do live as they do on their studio albums. And that was the way like XPW was in comparison to WWE or WCW or even ECW to an extent. Later on, especially when they got on the TNN, but it was like, dude, no, I know I'm gonna see that same product, maybe even more at a live show, you know. So yeah, there was that niche opinion within that niche audience that really felt that way. And there were actually fans, kind of reminds me a little bit of Lucha Vavoom, how when you go to those shows, you do see a lot of non-wrestling fans that just go for that show. And there were some fans like that in XPW that just wanted a wild, like kind of like the same people that would go to punk shows like yours, that would just want that unadulterated, uncensored kind of anything can happen vibe of to spend a Friday or Saturday night in LA, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things, you know, it's weird being in LA and producing live events. It's like you're against concerts and movies and like every club and every bar. And like, you know, I think, you know, sporting events, like there's so many things you're trying to navigate to get a date that you're not competing with so many other things. The venue's available, the guys are available, the crew's available, everything, you know, like it's that constant, you know, negotiation. But it seems like also too with Lucha Vavoom and when roller derby picked up and like all of these things had their audience. Those people would go to see roller derby. Oh, it's going to be in 2 weeks. It would sell out pre-sale and everyone was going. And like, we were still, like you said, in our infancy, trying to find a groove where we could just routinely like I was really trying to set up in my last days get back to Ventura, get an LA show and get Bakersfield, get San Diego, get the guys coming in from out of town, give them 3 dates, get them in on Thursday or Friday morning and out Sunday night or Monday. So where we would just have a system and it was just really difficult to find a way where you were, especially when you're working on, you're really trying to produce this thing after hours from your other job, from your regular job, you're working this job, trying to make it, so, you know, a better, you know, shinier, grittier product.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's so true. And, no, you were definitely, I mean, a huge part. And even after you left and you basically answered my next question, your departure, when you found out, how did you find out when, I mean, you were definitely we were all still in contact with each other.
Oh yeah. And I was still watching the TV.
Of course. Yeah. And, so did you find out, how did you find out when XPW ended?
I think Kevin told me. And I just remember, I remember a meeting specifically during, you know, 2001, I'm going to say, that was just like hey, everyone come in for a meeting. And it was during the day, so it was all the Xtreme workers, employees. And I just remember there being a discussion, and it was like, okay, when the feds raid us, everyone go to Kevin. And just being like, when the feds raid us, everyone go to Kevin. Like, it wasn't if this thing happens. And that was the discussion. So, like, I think Xtreme was feeling the heat, which, eventually destroyed them, and Rob and Lizzie going to court and doing all their things. And the
so just to recap, and please continue for the fans out there. Xtreme Associates, the adult film company that was basically Rob's before XPW was created.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I talk about the advantages that we had with the money, with the production and all that we used. So Rob Black, of course, not just a controversial figure in wrestling and XPW, but it was actually for the world of adult film that was already kind of looked at as seedy. He was controversial in that world too.
Right.
And he was on what was it, Nightline 60 Minutes, one of those shows where they were doing an expose on porn on adult film. Right. And he was just balls to the wall. Another German band, but balls to the wall with calling out like the federal government, and this was at a time when like the Howard Stern, Jerry Springer era, where it was very free speech era, like the late 90s, early 2000s. Political correctness was a thing, but it was kind of like fashionable to break that wall, if you will, back then in a way. Even though political correctness still did exist, and that's why we as XPW were still pushing the envelope. But he was pushing the envelope and making a name for himself, and it was a lot of it was for publicity. So this was no joke. There was the Bush-Cheney administration at the time, which were huge, trying to implement censorship, whether it was right, film, music.
Free speech was a big deal.
Right. And the Republicans were in, and they wanted to hammer down. I mean, Al Gore's wife, Democrat, she wanted to hammer down too. It comes off of both sides, right? But I think more so the Republicans, right? Not to get political here at all, but it was in trouble, was free speech. So Rob took advantage of that, and he went on and he challenged him, cocky as can be. And you know what? John Ashcroft, which was the Attorney General at the time, he was known for being an old school right-wing conservative, Bible thumping, all this and that. And so that's who the challenge from Rob Black was laid to, Attorney General John Ashcroft, literally. And so that's what happened when Mike here's when you're talking about the raid, it's going to happen. He challenged him. And I'll just give my memory of that, which was, I remember going to the office and I saw the sheet that was signed. It was like, Rob Black, right here, you signed Xtreme Associates, John Ashcroft, Attorney General, right? And John Ashcroft's signature was on the paper, the same paper, Rob Black, or Rob Zakari, right? And I just remember like, holy crap! Like, this is like beyond wrestling. This is historic in a way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so I got there though after the feds came in and ransacked the place, right?
Yeah.
And so you were now, just so I could clear that up and explain to the fans that don't know what that meant. So you were in a meeting before the feds raided the place, and basically, like you said, they were saying not if but when.
Yeah, it was very much a, when this happens, everyone be quiet, go to Kevin. Like, everyone report to Kevin, because I guess he was assuming he would be unreachable at that moment.
Okay.
I just remember just that really sank in, and I was like, that what those words weren't chosen by mistake. That was very, very intentional.
Yeah.
And then I don't know in the time frame when that was in comparison to when I left, but once I heard it had happened, I was like, really? Like, it really happened? Like, okay, like it's going to be interesting to see where things go.
Right.
Excuse me. But yeah, and then all the XPW ceasing immediately was inevitable. Like, what are you really going to do? Because XPW didn't, as far as I know, recoup. Like, it never broke even. If your venue's asking you for $10,000, and then you've got talent, you've got production, we didn't have insurance, so at least we saved money there. But all the different things that come in, and if you bring in 1,800 people after expenses, and only doing that every 4 to 6 weeks. I think some even got up to 2 months with between shows. I mean, and like you said, it was that inability to be consistent, which our infancy and that inconsistency, I think, really led to us probably struggling more to still figure things out than we've already figured this out. We're in the zone, we're in our chairs, we're looking at monitors, like we're making things go. So I think there was an extra struggle added onto, like, when we went to Pico, it was like, okay, we're at the Pico Rivera Sports Arena, we're out in the dirt with pyro and it's like nearly raining, and like there was just so many things lending itself to mishaps. But those shows were really wild with the pyro.
Oh man, the Pico Rivera shows, those were great. Grimes, Supreme, and gosh, man, and that was the perfect venue for that, for all the pyro and wild shows. And then I always say Angel gets so overlooked because he came off of a Scaffold too, but he kind of gets shadowed with the Vic Grimes New Jack Freefall event. It really does. But he needs to get, and we do give him credit on this show too. Not just the show episode that I interviewed him for, but other wrestlers and fans too bring him up when it comes to, like, dude, that guy should be lucky he's not in a wheelchair, he's not paralyzed, he's not dead.
Right. And we had the moments that were New Jack and Vic on a scaffolding, but Angel was one of those guys that should get more credit because he was day in and day out.
And Jimmy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all the homegrown guys that were coming in doing promos, coming in, being on the TV for scenario, different skits and things. But Angel always was top of his game, I thought. That was always the thing. It was like there was never a fuss, and a lot of the guys, there was never a fuss. But like you said, though, I think in a lot of circles he probably is overlooked when he should.
Right. I mean, they call him the hardcore homo. It's not just the sexual acts; it's the wrestling too.
Well, and
it's
that
hardcore.
Was the thing too, is I thought his character was so ahead of its time.
Oh,
so ahead of its time. And I remember, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think we were pitching storyline for Cold Day in Hell, and we were going to have Angel and Crack get married.
Yeah.
Because like the gay marriage thing was such a big deal. And we're like, let's cash in on this hot topic. This is in the headlines. Let's do this. And I remember, I'm not sure whose idea it was. It might have been mine, but we were going to have Altar Boy Matthew come out and disrupt the wedding.
Oh, that's cool, man.
And I just remember we were like, oh, because then we could, and before that, it really played into what was going to happen before and happen after, and then deliver that on the day. And I just remember, and he was a guy who had come in after I left.
Right.
And left before we started really doing things again. I tracked him down and I was like, hey man, how's it going? Oh my gosh, so great to hear from you. Oh, reunion show. Oh, that'd be so great. And just talking to him, and I was like, hey, we've got this idea for you to break up this wedding ceremony. And he was like, oh, I can't do that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, why? And he goes, oh, because I have friends that are gay and they'll get upset. And I'm like, well, dude, this is wrestling. Like you're not really an altar boy. They're gonna get their revenge on you. And then I just felt myself going, oh, I'm gonna have to talk him into this. And if anything goes wrong, I'm never going to hear the end of it. So I was
Right.
like, hey, this is an idea. If you're on board with it, then I'll see if I can move further on it. But if you're not on board, it's going to die here because I don't want you doing anything you don't want to do.
Mhm.
And I just remember, I don't think he didn't have a spot at the show,
Mhm.
but I don't remember if that was because we couldn't go with having some storyline for him. But I
Right.
mean, him just appearing would have worked too. I don't remember the details of why that didn't come out.
It's funny, like I was talking to Messiah Billy about like his character, the Messiah, how it was controversial and all this, and how what he felt personally. And then there were certain things that they wanted me to say on commentary, and the few things were like, look, we're already XPW and ECW is already extreme. We're already kind of looked at as just by the name alone, we were kind of like copycat. So I did everything I could like to not be a Joey Styles ripoff, right? Which some people think I am, some people think I'm not, but whatever, you have your own opinion. But so I tried so hard to distance myself from that, because I didn't grow up listening to Joey Styles. I grew up listening to Gorilla Monsoon and Bill Mercer and Lance Russell and all those guys. And so it's almost like no matter what I said at times, I couldn't escape that. And when I had my long blonde hair, I had to get my hair cut for a job. And when I just got a regular haircut, and everyone's like, "Oh, Joey Styles ripoff." I'm like, dude, it's just a haircut, you know. So, but it's funny because we in wrestling, like Billy and I were talking about all this, right? And he was, we were talking about how even us that work in wrestling, our suspension of disbelief is like heightened in comparison to like a movie or a play or a TV show that we would be playing a role in, right? Like most likely, if you got a script for a TV show that did the same thing that Matthew was doing, it would probably be like, no problem, I'm an actor. But because this is pro wrestling, we in the business get lost in this like suspension of disbelief, like, well, this is kind of this angle is kind of real. And this is like, we forget like at the end of the day, this is no different than being in a movie. Yeah. Right. It's amazing to me how people in the business forget this, right? That they take this a little too seriously to where like, this is who you are. But I'm paraphrasing a great documentary from the 90s narrated by Steve Allen, the real history of pro wrestling or something like that, right? And it was on A&E, and one of the guys, very interesting professor, and he was talking about that, how the suspension of disbelief is heightened because, and he brought up Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire. And he said, if you watch the movie Jerry Maguire, you know that that's Tom Cruise, the actor, playing that character, Jerry Maguire. Right. But when you see Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair in the ring, then you see him in the parking lot or outside. That person is one and the same. That's Hulk Hogan, the wrestler. So we all have this little bit of suspension, and the fans do, of course, have the suspension of disbelief. But we have to be careful sometimes when we work in the business to remember that this is, in large part, the same as acting. You know, so it's amazing how we forget that. And like your story right there about Matthew, like, I don't know, man, my friends are gay, but I'm sure those gay friends, if he was playing a bad guy in a movie that was like either anti-gay, they would have no problem with it. Yeah. So it's fun talking about this with you and other people on the show, and just to kind of give the psychology of us too in the business, that I know it's presented as real. I get that part of it. It's presented as this is a real sport. So again, whereas a movie is like, okay, I'm going to pretend this is real, but we all know that this is an act. You know, movie theater. It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, and it made me think also too, is it's like, does XPW have a bigger reputation for things being more real? Like could he have, you know, and this is all, you know, after the fact, but like, was he scared his friends were really gonna think? Like, was he that convincing, you know? And man, I just remember like, oh, because we could do this, and then there's a cake, and then Angels in a Dress, and we do all these different things, and like we just suspend the, like just all the build up to it, and then just have him come out, the guy who hadn't been on TV or like hadn't been, a really highlighted guy that had been in the company. He was around for a little while, but it would be what a great return to have him come in and try to foil, and maybe he wouldn't even get away. Like, we didn't even get into the details, but
right,
just what could have been, and God, we had a great time anyway. And,
yeah.
So it's just like, but that was one of the things I was like, oh man, if we could just pull that off.
You were talking, Mike, about overhead and like how much things were costing us, the efficiency of cost and how much we were going over, and were we actually losing money and all this. And that's kind of ironic because indirectly the end of XPW in large part was due to Rob's involvement with the federal government that had to do with the adult film side of everything. Right. But the goal, if you remember, was it was to the thing that was finally, hopefully on paper, going to get us over the top as far as making money was, which ended up happening right at the end, was the pay-per-view. Because we never had pay-per-view events during the duration of XPW, but we had that one, which was supposed to be the beginning of regular pay-per-views. That was like, we built this brand and we finally got it to the point now where we can start not only doing best ofs, which was the first pay-per-view, the introduction for us and to the fans of what XPW was, but now like do shows on the West Coast, the East Coast. And one of the times Joey Styles and I was going to do the LA shows, he's going to do the East Coast, but we were going to come together for the pay-per-views, which
wow.
Yeah. And so this was the plan. So it's interesting when you say like, yeah, we were losing money. We weren't making any. But the plan again was like, okay, that was the goal, to get us to the point where like, this is going to all make sense financially,
Oh, totally. Yeah. It was all building, and it was like scattered between like the East Coast stuff and then trying to do stuff at home. And, it was that consistency and still in the infancy, but I think, working towards like once we got into the pay-per-view thing, that was making money on stuff we'd already shot. It had already been edited. There wasn't a big expense involved. Mm-hmm. And that's something we had never had money outside of DVD sales, t-shirt sales, and the gate,
Right.
But yeah, it's the end result after being technically in the hole, one company owned, two companies owned by one guy, one company owes the other money. If at the end, it starts to flourish, hey, mission accomplished.
Right.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, like right when that pay-per-view aired, it was like so bittersweet, man. It was like you watch it and then you're like, oh, but the company's gone. Right. But I don't think the fans didn't know when that pay-per-view aired that the company was gone. We all did, but yeah, it was like right toward the end, and it was crazy because we could feel this momentum happening, and then it was like boom, it ended. Yeah. Like we were filming. I did the wraparounds for even though the footage was old, my wraparounds were new for the pay-per-view.
Oh right.
And we were filming those, and we were talking about where we were going, and then Joey and I working together before he left. Which personally would have been great because I kind of wanted to not so much prove to myself, but let the fans see like if we were working together in the booth, then you could more tell the difference between us as far as announcers go. Yeah, and
yeah, it's look, A and B, it's not two.
Yeah, and I love Joey, man. Like he and I to this day still good friends, and we actually became better friends. Yeah, we became better friends real close because he got me actually a tryout with WWE, and I thank him to this day.
Right.
Very nice of him. And great guy, good family man. And so we really connected during the WSX Cold Day in Hell time. Was when he kind of told me like, hey, you're on the radar, Kloss, they know who you, because of MTV and all that. But anyway, great guy. I love Joey, and so when people online like go, oh, you guys must hate each other. It's like, no, it couldn't be farther from the yeah, it's ridiculous.
If it sells a ticket, then yes, we hate
each
other.
Of course. but you know, they would just say it just to say it. But so okay, so that was right there, Mike. You were there pretty much almost to the end of XPW with Rob Black and all that, the Extreme Associates days. So we fast forward a little bit to Big Vision Entertainment. Oh, one of the great video conglomerates of all. But they definitely, wrestling aside, they were doing their thing. You know, they were producing for Sci-Fi Network, Ghost Hunters, which was a huge show at the time. Your favorite DJ Dance Jizzy with the Hizzy and all that, and Jizzy Gillespie was one of the.
Oh, our brainstorming sessions at that time, were just fantastic.
And an inside joke was Mount Fiji, because we were also producing the re-release of the 80s. Big Vision was producing the re-release of Glow Wrestling. So Babe, the farmer's daughter, she would come in, and her daughter Alaka would be there. Alaska. And you know, so we were involved with that. And then we just had this inside joke, whatever, because we would pre-watch all this. And when Fiji came on and did her tinkle, almost like all day throughout the office was just this random tinkle. We would be shouting this from our office, and Kevin would be like, "Oh God, what are these guys doing?" So tinkle was a big thing in the Big Vision offices. Still to this day, we tinkle.
To this day.
My
gosh.
But so okay, so you were working. I was working Big Vision Entertainment. You came and started working Big Vision Entertainment. Right. Our offices we had a wall between our offices, but they were right next to each other. And we would go out to lunch. We would take walks down to the Juan's coffee shop and whatever.
Juan's coffee shop.
Yeah, classic Van Nuys landmark. And
so good.
The great, and burgers, but then you had like Japanese and Chinese food. Like, it was just the best.
Yeah,
but
and it looked like a coffee shop.
And it felt like a old coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
But so okay, so this was at a time like you came in during Wrestling Society X, right? And
Kevin had called me and said, "Oh, hey, I'm working on this show." You know, and it was right around the same time that Big Vision was getting ready to hire. They needed somebody to come in on the home video side, production manage, you know, get elements that are coming in, get it all set up and DVD authoring, and get stuff out to, and also shipping all the stuff to distributors. We had a local manufacturer. We were getting boxes of tapes. We'd ship them off to whoever the heck the distributor was. I don't remember. But being in that stew, I started right after WSX filmed.
Right. So, okay. Yeah, I remember that. And so WSX was going on, and then we did our one season, and then it like a bummer to all of us. It got canceled after one season, and it was just like, I know you weren't in the meetings in Burbank with MTV, but like, I tell people all the time, it was like so bittersweet. Like, you had this network, this platform, the sweet part, but then dealing with that network, people that didn't know anything about wrestling, it was like the writing was on the wall. They're gonna, all this work we've done and all these ideas we have, they're just gonna like wrench this right into the ground, and they did. Yeah. And the talent was there. The people and the people that knew wrestling were there.
The production was great too. It looked slick and grungy. Like, it looked exactly like what it needed to be. Something completely different, but familiar enough to. It looked a lot like Lucha Underground. yeah, kind of did, didn't it?
Right. But either way, it's so we were still working in Big Vision, of course, and that's when you and I would like just out the top of our head just BSing about XPW. And now that we had like more talent from WSX, we had better production innovations now from stuff that we were also working with MTV in producing that show. So Vision Entertainment had a big hand in like what's the reason why WSX looked the way it did, right? And so
there were a lot of advantages.
Totally. And so we were just, you and I were just like in the office. Kevin had no, like, wasn't even thinking twice about like XPW or revamp or anything like that.
Right.
I almost want to say that Houston Curtis, who was like the president, the guy, and Kevin was one below him, VP. I almost vaguely remember, like, when we were talking about it, initially he was even more interested than Kevin was. I want to say,
the vibe I remember from Kevin is, because we bug him constantly. We would bug him as if it was already gonna happen when it had not been
right.
gotten a green light. We would be like, so when we do it, we should do all these things. And he was just, I think, going down the way Xtreme did, I think he had to deal with so much of that stuff firsthand. And
Right.
I can only imagine being in a position where it's like a band reuniting, or like getting together with an ex-girlfriend, or like you're going down a road where there's a good potential for it to be an enormous headache.
Yeah.
And I was sensitive to that, but then you and I would go to lunch and be like, this has got to happen. This has got to happen.
We could do this, we could do that, we could do this, and we could change this, and we could keep this.
Right. Right. And I remember, as we were thinking of how to do it, I remember just being, how do we do it cheap? Like, how do we do it affordable? So like it will happen, because if we go, hey, it's going to be all these different things and we're going to fly in all these guys, then everyone starts thinking worst case scenario. Yeah. And I just remember, like, when we really started to get serious, we were writing things down and being like, because we know this can happen, and then hoping that would draw all the fans in, or at least get the buzz going on to where, we would see what comes out of it. But yeah, I remember Kevin just being really standoffish, understandably.
Yeah.
Because we were just there for long hours and a lot of grunting and having a product that looked great. Well, he was in the mix.
Right. And it was just like, it was like when we were sitting there working at Big Vision, and then that's when, like, they re-released like the best of season 1. And I was actually involved. I was the guy that was like, it was so fun. It was like, this was my job, but like my job was to go with the master copies, to go through every episode of XPW TV. So I was just like, this is a lot of fun. I'm reliving all this stuff, and I'm writing the time codes down. And there was about 120 XPW TV episodes, right around 120, 121. I want to say was 131 was the number, I want to say. But anyway, so it was like, and then so we re-released that on DVD. We had all the old XPW footage, and it was like we were like so close but so far. Like, all this stuff was right in front of our face. It's like, we have this. We can do, and we're like not just two guys talking about it. We are sitting at a production company right now. Like, the puzzle pieces are here. They're just all scattered out right in front of us,
Yeah, and also, too, for the fans that don't know, Big Vision bought XPW.
Right.
So Big Vision had this product of all this catalog and the name, the trademark, everything sitting on a shelf.
Right.
And so we would look at those boxes and just be like, okay, best of first season, like just looking at the TV, repackaging everything, and also the response. I think Best Buy was one of the biggest accounts. They were selling tons of the TV show.
Best Buys and fries.
Yeah. And so I think once it came time to, oh, hey, we've got a budget for this reunion show, they looked at it as the end result is this DVD, it's this pay-per-view, it's what, like, we weren't just having a show and then at the end of the day we close the doors. It's like, no, this is going to be something we can hype, something you can sell after the fact, and budgeted it out, and it worked.
It worked. And also, too, I remember there were talks about, and that actually, by the way, going back to what you said, like, which I was sensitive to Kevin, too. And as far as like how things affected him, as far as like the potential drama that was going to come out of redoing XPW. And I think that's in large part why Houston and Rick, that weren't around for like the original XPW, like they were just looking at it like, yeah, this is a great idea. They didn't have that residual like, oh, what if this, or what do I have to deal with that? So they were like, no reason not to be on board. So I remember you and I when we were talking, and once like you saw that spark in Houston's eyes, I'm like, all right, yes, we got it. Kevin's gonna eventually come in too. You know, he's right. But sorry, Kevin. But anyway, yeah. But at the end of the day, like we're all like a band of brothers, and we will enjoy this together. Like we all like working together, Kevin, you, me, and everyone else, right? So I mean, it was like it was great. So I remember too, though, when you were talking about the reason business-wise why you'd want to have this reunion show, right? Because cost-effective DVDs, pay-per-view. So also too, 2008, of course, the big crash, right? The crash of '08, which basically ended Big Vision Entertainment. And then that was during early 2008 was when May of 2008 was Cold Day in Hell. But we there's a lot of prep before that. So this was before the crash. Right. And so the long term, if you remember this, the long-term plan was like, okay, we sell Cold Day in Hell pay-per-view DVDs. And if this is a success, then we're not necessarily going to bring XPW back as like a weekly TV show, but kind of like how TNA wrestling started back in the early 2000s, where they were just only monthly or however often they did pay-per-views back then. And we probably wouldn't have done them as often as TNA did them, but that was the goal. Like, let's just build storylines and maybe have a once or bi-monthly pay-per-view. And so,
Right. And also too, is they could see the budget and the pay-per-view money.
Right.
And, it was definitely this is to do this thing. Like this expense and effort will turn into this catalog piece that, and I just remember Rick from Big Vision being an early guy, XEG, being very early into getting pay-per-views. Like he was diving in, so like XPW, I'm sorry, Big Vision was Houston Curtis and XEG was Rick Marr, and they both
sister companies.
Yeah, those two companies bought XPW, the catalog, the name, and all that stuff. So these two guys we were, basically working for to say, hey, let's prove to you that this can work. And so, we weren't looking at a $10,000 venue, and we were, oh, this has to work, because if it doesn't work, these guys are going to say, what the fuck are you guys doing? You're spending $10,000 for a building. You sold 1,800 tickets. Like, do you not know math? So I remember we found the Redondo Beach Aviation Park. Aviation Park. And I just remember having gone to 30 venues of different parks and different venues, and trying to think of something that would work, because most of the nightclubs didn't work well with having the space we needed and just to have everything. And like the country club, I'm pretty sure was closed by then, and like a lot of the places, I'm pretty sure the Olympic was gone too. That wasn't an option. But we were really kind of starting from scratch with like, well, we're not doing a VFW hall, we need something. It has to look like the right element. It has to look like, somebody didn't give the logo to some kids down the street and they went, hey, let's throw something together. So like, I really wanted to prove to them, we can make something look like, holy shit, this is a production, So, and I think we pulled it off pretty well, though we were banned from the building. Think it was a great
give a shout out to referee extraordinaire Eric Malikian.
Oh, Eric Malikian,
for finding that venue, because he actually lived
down the street, right?
Yeah, he lived right down the street.
Yeah.
I might still live there, but no, if it wasn't for him, that wouldn't have been the venue. So shout out.
And it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
it had pull-out bleachers on either side. We filled in the other two sides with the entryway and some floor seating.
Yeah, totally. And so that show was a success for what it was. Unfortunately, again, it just happened right before the crash, and it was just a bad timing thing, but that was on its way to at least becoming like a monthly by monthly kind of entity once again, via pay-per-view. So then before it officially went down in flames because of the crash, we did another show called XPWX, Roman numeral X, XPW 10, because that happened in 2009, which 1999 was the first XPW show. So we did the 10-year XPWX anniversary show. And how did that come about? How are you involved? Because I got to tell you, man, like not just that show, but Cold Day in Hell, like I know you and I BS'd about it, but honestly, like none of that would have happened if it wasn't for you. None of that.
Yeah, I remember. I'm trying to think of how I found that venue. I think there had been another show ran in that building, and it was about half, maybe even less than half the size of Aviation Park, but it had a balcony.
Mm-hmm.
So like the idea was to really stack everything inward and like really make it like where people were on top. Like it was just really a close scene.
Yeah.
And we started putting that show together and we started reaching out to talent, and I'm trying to think of how it fell apart, but happened anyway, because I remember financially, I want to say I paid for a bunch of it out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like, we're going through this, we're out of money, but the show's got to happen. Like it's not going to get, I mean, I hate canceling more than anything on the planet. It's just small or big. It's really a bad situation. So I remember coming out of pocket on a lot of it. And that was a venue we were going to have a lot of access to.
Right.
I was working with the guy.
What was it called again?
It was called, gosh.
It was on Santa Monica Boulevard between Vine and Highland.
The Arena.
The Arena. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know if that place is still there anymore. No, it's not.
The building is demolished.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I had met the head of security through working with the roller derby in Los Angeles.
The Derby Dolls. The Derby Dolls.
LA
Derby Dolls.
He brought me to the owner, and the owner was really cool, like really a good dude. And he owned the Circus venue as well as the Arena. It was two dance clubs on the same block, and he pretty much owned the block. And he had the approach to where, oh, this is going to be in my club? Fuck yeah, it's going to be in my club. Like he had, he had a sense of like, this is a good thing. This is cool. Cool. Like I get to tell my friends that I've now got wrestling in my venue. So he was on our side, but in a financial situation, he wasn't going to like, hey, great, I got bragging rights, but the show lost $3,000 or whatever. So I just remember trying to keep that relationship on the good side, just getting through what we had to do. And I don't remember if it was the security budget or what it was, but put us over. And like we had plane tickets, like I was flying guys in and stuff. And so it was like, this is going to happen. Like we might be beat to shit next week, but we're not canceling. And especially because like we're in the position of trying to prove to these guys we should be given the reins to this thing, and we should be able to manage it and make it work and make it bring you money and pay for itself and turn a profit. So we can't cancel. Like we can't, like there's no way cancel is going to happen. So I just remembered, everybody came in, we shot it. It's, I think, White Trash Johnny Webb still has it on a hard drive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anytime I talk to him, he brings it up. But I know the show's edited, or he's got all the elements and it's partially edited.
Well, we want to get him on Xtreme Memories when we can, and I'll always say like he was a big part, not just as a wrestler, but in the same vein that you are, like, because he edited all those XPW TV shows, which a lot of people don't know. And he's an interesting guy, but he definitely, you can't take away, like, he had the mind, not just as a wrestler, but you combine that with like his, I can't even explain to people that don't know Webb, but he had the right mind for what he was doing, which was that TV show. And when he left, man, like, that was when he was gone, and we had other people editing the show, I knew, man, that was it. That's the end, and it sure enough was. So yeah, interesting that he still has that. But shout out to Webb there. But so you now, okay, so XPW 10, and that was again XPW X, and that was the end of Big Vision Entertainment, the end of us doing anything with XPW. Now, the innovative mind of Mike Hartsfield, Tico, which is let's do something that we can skirt around, and then the birth of MEXPW, which was your brainchild, and then which turned into MEX Pro because of, I guess, some legal stuff.
Legal.
Yeah, it got legal. Whether you want to get into that, I don't know. But
sure.
Okay, so after XPW X, then Big Vision was basically done. You, myself, and all the other wrestlers, really, but primarily you, like you said, you were so involved with XPW X, even though it was a Big Vision and an XPW product. You were so hands-on doing everything. It was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like, well, I was doing that anyway. Let me do it on my own. And so you created MEXPW, which stood for, I don't know if it did really stand for anything.
Well, it was Mexican Professional Wrestling.
Right.
It was the idea to kind of pick up where we were, but add in some lucha. But it was a direct shaving off of what we had worked on. Oh, this is just the next term we're going to make because we're forced to.
Right.
But XPW had just become something that was trying to work with people who owned an entity, didn't have the mindset of what to do with it, but had us in their pocket willing to work for it and turn it into something. And I just remember exchanging emails with between Houston and Kevin and Rick and Houston being the owners and Kevin Kleinrock being XPW, of trying to build something that worked. Like, if we do this, can we do that? If we fulfill this, and it was all steps to make XPW, like, I could send you these memos of like, this is going to be the first half of the year. These are going to be intermittent. Like, I had written and rewritten, and Kevin and I had sat on these things and just, okay, we're going to send this off. And then like, oh, hey guys, give me a call Tuesday. Oh no, 2 days doesn't work. How about Thursday? And just being like, dude, okay, if it's not going to be Thursday, we're going to walk away from this. Like, dude, like, you've had 2 weeks to pin us down for a date. This is business. This isn't like, we're not fucking around. Like, please, And I just remember Kevin saying, if you're telling him you need something by Thursday, that's Thursday. Like, we're not going to take his call on Friday. And I'm like, no, we're not. And he goes, so really, you've got to come to terms with XPW's gone for the moment or for wherever. But like, it's time for you to take your energy and do your thing so you don't have to answer to anybody.
Right.
And so it got into missing that date. And he followed up with an email, and we said, we're no longer working on the project. And he was like, all right, goodbye. Which he didn't care. It wasn't a big money thing for him. He was making a lot of money in other things. So like, he was doing tons of stuff with like the bum fights thing and all the backyard wrestling stuff. And those guys made tons of money on stuff that didn't take effort like we were going to be willing to put in.
True.
So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to make MEXPW, and it's going to be Mexican Pro Wrestling, but maybe the logo is going to be kind of together, and you're going to see the XPW kind of close together. But I mean, it's, and I just remember saying, fuck it. this is what I'm doing. And just like, let's get all the guys, let's get everybody working. Let's have some fun. Let's make t-shirts for guys. And the thing is we had that relationship from the building. Like the building was just waiting for wrestling. So it was as easy as wrestling's coming. They didn't care what the company was. They were just like, oh, wrestling's back on Saturday. That's great. So we had our relationship with a venue we could build in. I mean, it was, the building liked us, you know, and it was affordable, and they were easy to work with stuff. And like, we could go down there like we did. We shot promos in there, like during the day. We'd measure, you know, if we were going to build something or whatever. I mean, it was a really good situation.
Yeah, it was.
So we did the first MEXPW show, and then we got attorneys involved because one of the guys that owned the trademark of XPW, who'd bought it off Rob, said I was infringing on his trademark with our logo, which what our intention was to bite it as hard as we could. Yeah. But deny we were biting it as hard as we were, because we wanted all of that flavor.
Bite it, but not chew it up.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Just like reference all the same guys: Supreme, Messiah, Jimmy. I think Jimmy was out of state at the time, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
But really have as much as the same guys, bringing in Carnage and Vinny Massaro, and like, you know, like having something that was giving back to the fans what they had been without.
Yeah, and what they were still clamoring for and interested at that time. Because if they're clamoring and interested in it now, and I understand that like Vice brought some renewed interest in it with Jack and Grimes, and of course the passing of Supreme, but if there's renewed interest now, like think about back then, because a lot of fans were like left hanging with Cold Day in Hell and XPWX.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So we also knew going into this, like, all right, dude, they're just waiting outside these doors here while we're doing all this stuff.
Right.
So there was business wise, like you said, there was reason to be interested in this, you know?
Right. And especially because the guys were like, dude, we just did Cold Day in Hell. We just did the 10-year show. Like, we're as involved as we want to. Like, we want to keep working. And we didn't have alternatives, really. You know, like we had like some of the swap meets and indoor, like different kind of things that were like, the guys didn't really want to work there for the most part. Some of them did, but they needed a production, which is what I was really striving to deliver. So after the first show, we got I got a cease and desist order from Rick, XEG, part owner of the XPW trademark. And I was like, okay. Because I mean, where I come from, just in experience wise, there's a lot of like, I don't give a shit, you know. And I'm sure it's not the smartest attitude to have, but it's the one I had.
It's the punk rock world, baby.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like, dude, I have no money. I have nothing you could sue me for, but you could try to make life difficult. You could take me to court and win and get a judgment and never get paid, but still have to pay your attorneys and like court fees and stuff. So I was kind of like, fuck you. And I just remember talking to Kevin Kleinrock, because he had experience with the attorney that had sent me the letter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he was like, that dude's a badass. He's going to fuck you up. Like, that attorney once sued us, so we hired him. Like, he was so ruthless in a prior lawsuit that they were like, hey, okay, the dust is settled. You're incredible. You're ruthless. And then they hired him for stuff. So Kevin knew the guy was going to destroy me.
Yeah.
And so I started researching the trademark, and XPW had something pretty unique where they had in the details, when you looked it up online, it was like any letters before it and after it. Like, it was like who would think to put that in there? Because it's exactly what we did. And so I contacted an attorney through a friend who was a trademark attorney. And I was like, okay, this guy's he's not gonna steer me wrong. I explained it to him, and he was like, okay, I think you've got a case. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah, I'm $450 an hour. So I was like, dude, the guy who can't pay for this judgment, if I lose it, also can't pay you 450 grand.
Yeah.
And then I contacted Youth Suicide, who was a wrestler, had been working for us, Andre, and he's like, fuck those guys. Let's fight them. We'll take them on. Fuck them. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. He's like, I'll do it for free, dude. I don't care.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so we could just fight this guy. And I remember him saying specifically, well, if we don't win, I can do your bankruptcy paperwork for you. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, I've never filed for bankruptcy. Like, and I don't really want to. So I just let it go as long as I could. And I poked him a few times. And so we named the next show Cease and Resist, because we had been served with the cease and desist order. I'm trying to turn lemons into lemonade. I'm like, oh, let's do some shit together. Like, you know, thinking that maybe he's got something he doesn't even want to do anything with. We're in the trenches trying to put on a show, trying to create this brand now that's something new. And so I started doing interviews and stuff promoting the show, and I would specifically talk shit on him, thinking if we could turn this into money, maybe he's going to get interested. And he would just go to Kevin and say, why the fuck is Mike talking shit on me? And Kevin's like, dude, he's trying to, like, you don't get it? He's trying to get you into this thing so we can turn something into it. And he just took it all personal. Oh, he called me a dickhead or something. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call you a dickhead 300 times now that I know it irritates you. Like, let's do company versus company. Like, do something with this momentum.
It's a shtick in wrestling.
Yeah. And another reason why we fought about, like, why does this guy even own this thing? Like, he doesn't even understand what anyone's trying to do. He just sees guys jumping off turnbuckles and thinks, whatever, if I can turn a buck on it, maybe. But I remember just being so angry that he had this trademark that he didn't deserve in a lot of ways. Like, he just threw down cash for it and owned it. So I just remember trying to prod him as much as I could. And then it just getting to show day. And he said he was going to get a judge to rule that, like, he was going to get an injunction and all this stuff. And it was just like it was taking up energy it was taking away from focusing on the show.
Yeah.
So we changed it, you know.
MEX Pro.
We just changed it to MEX Pro, kept the logo. We didn't hear from him again, if I remember correctly. And we just started running. I think we ran maybe once or twice more at the arena. We had switched to a smaller building.
Oh, yeah. Right.
The Pineda Dome.
Oh, yeah. Forget where that was. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a big warehouse. I want to say like Los Alamitos or it wasn't Cudahy. It was one of those smaller towns that, you know, we were just really running a insane rodeo with, you know, in this warehouse, which became great because we were stepping into the same building. It was very affordable to get. We started building or creating original characters. Like we had the Born Stars and Vertigo, and we had guys that were working locally, but for us, they had a specific gimmick that only was on our shows, which I was really trying to be different and have what we were doing special, as opposed to one guy working 4 times in a weekend. You know, like there were so many shows and kind of so scattered out that I thought, if our show's special, it'll because this is the only place you can see this guy, which was a lot of what Rob had with XPW. it's like the guys were exclusive. If you want to be on TV, you're exclusive. You want to wrestle the Olympic Auditorium, you're going to be exclusive. And so with creating a gimmick that's only for this guy, hey, this is the understanding. Like, you know, you're not getting tons of money, but you get to be this guy here.
Yeah.
And so the guys that we created characters for were really receptive.
Right.
And like, I just remember working with the guys that were the Born Stars, just going down near San Diego to film promos with them. And they were guys I didn't know very well, but I remember seeing them. They were the guys that were Anchors Away, the tag team.
Yeah.
And then we turned them into the Born Stars. And I remember writing them on Facebook, like, hey guys, you don't know me. I've done a couple things, whatever. You guys are the guys I see. We've never met, but the way I see you perform, I've got this gimmick, and it's these two guys. And it's I gave them the storyline, and they were like, done. We're those guys. We're those guys. What do we need to do? And it was working with guys like that were so smart and crafty and funny and got it, and like were just as absorbed in it as I was hoping they would be. And I just remember filming promos and just my stomach hurting from the stuff they would do. You know, like I'd go down there with a loose idea. Hey, you know, we need to do a video, you guys working out or something. They were like, oh yeah, you do. And then they would just bust into stuff that was like,
great
okay,
stuff.
These are our guys. Like, we need more original characters.
Yeah.
And so they were awesome. They were literally some of the best easygoing guys that I worked with, and I learned a lot.
Totally. Jizzy
Gillespie and Rocky Bukaki. And maybe I'll try to find a way to leave their workout video in your comments. Because,
okay, cool.
Like, I remember editing it, just going, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what are people gonna say? Like, but it was I had learned a lot from XPW, like from Kevin, from Rob, and for what was done. And it was a lot of what Rob did, pushing the envelope, and actually, in speaking up for himself, spoke for a lot of other people who felt they were getting pressure from the government or whatever. It's like, hey, this guy's like, he's speaking for a lot of people, you know?
Totally.
And so I just remember just my creativity and my production. Like, I learned so much from Kevin, just work ethic, follow through. And like, I mean, just seeing Kevin work the hours he did, always working. And, you know, not just sitting at the office saying, hey, I'm at work, like working till all hours. And, you know, just seeing him come in first thing or him being there before me. And like, I knew anything I was going to work on, I had to be committed to do it myself and just not, you know, assign jobs to people or something if we were, you know, in some kind of a team setting. Like, I just, you know, always do what I can.
Yeah. Great stuff. And then of course, going from there. So that was, again, at the time when everything, not just for Big Vision, but the crash kind of hurt everything. So there was a lull right there. And that was kind of it for a while. You know, for all of us, you know, things pick up and all that. And, you know, I'll still get booked here and there. Wrestlers too that were involved, of course. So no, Mike, thank you so much for sharing all that. And before I ask you, like right now, like what you're doing, whether it's music or anything else, can you like talk about, like, say some memories of guys that we've lost, like Supreme? I mean, Dee's been gone for a while, but him and anybody else, Felony we just lost to, but we lost a lot, too many. But and also, like, maybe if you could share some personal cool stories with about any of those guys and yourself, and just like, were there any wrestlers like you were cool with, close to, and or just in general, that, and then like, I'll always like to give the fans some stories about our friends that have unfortunately passed away too soon.
Oh, for sure. Thinking of D first, I just remember, well, and for me coming into wrestling in 2000, into being a behind the scenes guy and trying to learn everything and trying not to say the wrong things. And when I say wrong things, I mean things that would be embarrassing, because I remember going to Thanksgiving dinner at Rob's house one year, and Kevin was there. And I remember Kevin burning me and saying, "Hey, do you guys know what Mike said on the first day he worked here?" And I was like, "Oh shit." He goes, "Yeah, he said he's going to keep a camera in his desk, so when Terry Funk comes in, he's going to get a picture with him." And I just remember being like, fuck, I remember being, that guy, which is a fan trying to get in the business and learn. And I remember I had talked to D specifically because I was going to work on a music video, and there was going to be wrestling in the music video. Mm. And I remember I'd be painting those X's or doing something out in the warehouse during wrestling school that D taught. Mm-hmm. And just the way he spoke to the guys, he was just this knowledge and understanding, and not in the way I had heard wrestling school went, with a lot of hazing and a lot of stuff.
No, right. Yeah, no. No, he wasn't that guy at all.
Yeah, and just being so giving mm-hmm. with his skill.
Totally.
I had asked him, "Oh, hey, could you work on this music video with me?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I go, "Well, what would you charge me?" And he goes, "Charge you? Get out of here. Like, when is it?" And I was just like this guy that, he was like, "Oh, that thing you're doing, I want to help you."
Yeah.
And it was just like, and the Olympic shows, like when he wrestled Scott Snott, mm-hmm. and like, there's so many memorable moments. And seeing him, like I'd seen him on TV before I'd gotten to the company. So I just remembered that guy's different. Like he's really special. And then realizing he was running the school and was like a lot of the technical knowledge on the wrestling side.
Right.
But yeah, losing him. And Supreme, I was probably the closest with. Mm-hmm. He was a guy, and it was funny because I remember the three guys originally that I was like most fixated on as like their work ethic and like their overall characters, being Jimmy, the Messiah, and Supreme.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Messiah about a few things, and I don't know what he was going through at the time and everything, but he was a little standoffish. Yep. Not a dick in any way, but like and plus I'm a kid trying to learn things. I'm sure I was probably annoying, but like I really wanted to know, like I wanted to learn things so bad. And I'm like, if I can learn from that guy, that would be amazing. Yeah. And I just remember meeting Supreme and him being just, "Dude, like, let's hang out. What do you want to do? Let's go get food or something." And like him just being like a very regular guy, mm-hmm. a real affectionate guy. And it's crazy because when you see him clothesline a guy or him work in the ring, anybody just watching TV is like, "Dude, this guy's a madman." And like when he was clotheslining, there was a TV episode where he was clotheslining guys trying to keep him out of Rob's office.
Yeah. Oh, that was the infamous. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many instances like that where you would think to loose cannon or something. And I remember one instance in particular, Supreme and I were going to shoot promos for MEXPW, and I had brought my daughter along. And she fell asleep on the way up there to his house. And I was holding her, as I came in the house and I sat down and we were just kind of shooting the shit. And she was turned to face, like the first thing she was going to see was him. And I'm like, this will be good. You know, let's see what happens. And she was probably 4 at the time or something.
Wow.
And and I just remember her going, "Oh, hi." Like, you know, and he was just, you know, it's such a bummer to lose him. Such a great guy and so smart and creative, and giving, you know, his knowledge, his body, so many things.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that, Mike. And we all miss him, and we all agree it's far too soon. And can't say enough about him. Can't ask enough people about him. So adding to that memory of him is appreciated by everybody watching for sure. So before we go, you know, people are probably very interested in the rock and roll lifestyle of
it's
my
fascinating.
Yeah, but you made a name for yourself, and you brought a little bit of wrestling into your performances on stage. Can you talk a little bit about that? You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. And
I always found that great, awesome, cool, and fascinating.
Yeah, and that was one of the things early on that I was trying to learn, like the nuances of it, I guess. And that's something Xtreme taught me. I brought a little bleeding technique into our stage performances, which you know, I'd grown up on Kiss, and you know, I spent a great deal of the 80s, you know, at the country club, at the Troubadour, at the Roxy, with bands that were making their own pyro and these stage shows and stuff. And so I was just like, God, what if I incorporated that somehow into the show? And I asked Xtreme about it. He's like, dude, I'll teach you how to do it. So I really learned that from Xtreme. And when I brought
and you're talking about?
I'm talking about the ability to bleed on command.
Right.
So
there's cool shots of you with the guitar and you're bleeding, and the razor blade is like one of the picks is a razor blade. No, I don't know. You hit it, but
yeah, I had it. It was on the back of one of the guitar picks. So I played most of the show with a regular one, and then as the last song would start, I'd switch. But like, I cut through my thumb so many times, and I would break a string with the razor blade. And
shoot!
It was an adrenaline rush trying to get to the part of the song where that could happen. But yeah, I remember Xtreme teaching me how in a very private setting, and he knew I was going to a show, and so when I returned, he grabbed my forehead. Oh, it's not too bad. You did a pretty good job. And you know, I remember not doing a very good job and being very clumsy. But I went on a tour in 2003 where I did it about every other day. And so when I got back, he was like, "Oh, okay, like that's how tour was, huh?" And so I just remembered really liking the fact that I was doing something different, and it kind of made our band stand out in a way. And like, I wanted, just like in magazines of wrestlers that we bought as kids, like that would draw our attention. And like, all these things are to draw you towards somewhere that somebody wants you to be.
Yeah, no, it's so cool, man. So yeah, like there's a hardcore element of this guy that always took the roots too of pro wrestling into your punk rock stage show. So very cool, Mike. Well, dude, coming to the end here, my friend. So any parting words, any shout outs, anything you want to talk about that you're doing right now today? I know we're all locked down, but anything going on?
Yeah.
Or a company you want to plug, or?
Gosh, you know what? I haven't been so involved in wrestling.
Or what you're doing, what you're doing.
Oh, well, yeah, what I'm doing. I still run my record label, New Age Records, going on 32 years.
Wow.
Maybe? 32 years, yeah. And then playing music, I play in a band called Free Will, which is a band that...
Not the whale, right? The whale. Oh, Free Will.
Exactly. We play the music to the whale jumping.
Okay.
But it's some friends that I made right after high school. We played for a couple years, took 26 years off or something. And then now we started playing again in like 2016, 2017. And we just wrote and recorded a new record. So
awesome, man.
The new Free Will record. Like, luckily during COVID, everyone's locked down. We would just get together for weekends and lock ourselves down. And,
cool.
Everyone being as safe as we can. Wrote a record.
Oh, very nice. So where could we find info about that? You and where does that all link up to?
NewAgeRecords.com has all the music stuff. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff.
That's Mike Hartsfield?
The Instagram and Facebook is Mike Hartsfield. The Twitter is Mike Fartsfield. So you tweet to me there, and we'll talk about things.
How's your daughter doing?
She's doing great.
Is she still giving karate kicks where she kicks up in the air and she lets out a fart? Is she still?
It's been a little while.
Okay. That was when she was little.
Yeah, she lives in Hollywood. She's got an apartment.
Oh, right on.
It's rad because she was very excited about wrestling when we used to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, she'd always be there and be in the mix and bring friends to shows and stuff.
It's so cool.
Yeah, and besides that, I've been doing a little bit of acting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
In a trifecta of movies called Death Toilet. So,
right on, man.
You're
not veering too far from all this extreme stuff. It's cutting yourself, toilets. So it's right avenue.
Just mix it all around. It's
awesome, man. Oh, I want to see that too. So you left your Twitter, you left your Facebook, and of course your company, New Age Records.
Yeah.
So check that out, fans. Well, for everybody here at the Wrestling Chatter channel, that brings you Xtreme Memories with Kris Kloss. This has been another great episode, primarily because of this guy right here, Mike Hartsfield. So, Mike, dude, great catching up with you, my friend.
Dude, thank you so much.
Show, yeah, man, it's always good seeing you, man, catching up, and hopefully sooner than later we could see each other in person. And if all goes well, we could have you on again, and you're sure. always more than welcome. And thank you for sharing your Xtreme Memories, which of course is on the 15th and 30th of the month. And for everybody here at the Wrestling Chatter, thank you. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time for more Xtreme Memories.
Thanks, my buddy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for watching Xtreme Memories, hosted by Kris Kloss. He's dropping new episodes every month on the 15th and 30th. You can be the first to tune in by subscribing to the Wrestling Chatter channel right here on YouTube. See you next time.